Hello, how are you today? Are you growing onions this year? You are? Are you growing them from seed or are you growing them from sets? Well, here at Homegrown Veg in the United Kingdom, I'm growing them from both. I've sown some onions from seed and I've planted some onions with sets. The seed we're using is a first for me, this particular variety. It's called Walla Walla. Very popular in the US. Not as popular, I don't think, in the UK. But I'm going with Walla Walla because I've seen it on some of the US YouTube videos. And by all accounts, it's a lovely big onion, a nice sweet onion. So we're going with Walla Walla from seed. And we're going with an onion called Red Baron from sets. As the name implies, a red skin. So we're going with seed and we're going with sets. Now what are you growing your onions in? A raised bed. Are you growing them in the borders? What about containers? Are you growing onions in containers? Well, I've grown lots of onions over the years in buckets and had great success with them. But this year I've purchased some fabric bags and I'm running a very small trial here at Homegrown Veg. I'm running a which is best buckets or bags trial. Now it's only small scale, but it's interesting. I'm interested. I'm fairly sure you'll be interested to see if one is better than the other, which is best buckets or bags for growing vegetables. Now there are some pluses and minuses with the buckets and the bags. And how will that affect the way the onions grow? I don't know. The buckets, for example, tend to retain water better than the bags. The bags just let the water escape through the sides of the fabric, through the base. The bucket relies on drainage holes in the bottom. So bags tend to dry out that much quicker. Not if you water them, just give them more water, they won't dry out. But one of the bonuses for bags, if it is a bonus, and we're not convinced it is just yet here at Homegrown Veg, is that the bags air prune. My understanding of air pruning is that the roots of the vegetable grow to the sides of the bag and try to grow through it. When they come into contact with the air prunes them, it nips them off. And so the onion, or whatever vegetable you're growing, the leeks, produce more roots. A stronger root ball. I'm not convinced that actually happens. And that's maybe something we can find out as further down the road with this little trial of mine. If we have a bucket growing onions and a bag growing onions, if we harvest them all at the same time and we take particular notice of the roots, then should we find that the onions growing in the bags have a bigger root system than the onions growing in the buckets? If they've been air pruned, should we find that? I don't know what to expect, but it's worth looking at, isn't it? It's worth looking at. And if you look at any of the videos on YouTube of people who grow vegetables for show, so these are big vegetables, they love air pots. They just love them because they air prune, and they're convinced that this air pruning will give them a bigger root ball, a bigger vegetable, particularly with onions and leeks. I'm growing both onions and leeks in bags and buckets. Which is best? We'll find out at the end of the season. Okay, I think this intro's been long enough now, hasn't it? Let's go outdoors and let's have a look at the progress that the onions have made in buckets and bags. Are you up for this? Come on then, let's go. This is Walla Walla that's been grown from seed, 4 in a bucket and 4 in a bag. It looks pretty even Stevens at the moment in terms of how well these onions are growing on. One worry I do have with these onions, and I must confess that now, is that at the beginning of this year, through April, we had lots of cold weather, and to be honest, I didn't think these onions were going to make it. I'd started them indoors, but I needed them outdoors, and it was too cold really, but I got them outdoors. I got them into the greenhouse, and yeah, April was frosty, and I'm only hoping that these onions haven't taken a check and that later on in the growing year they actually bolt. They're under seed. But there's nothing I can do about the weather. You know, if it's frosty, and we are where we are. So yeah, and I've chose to grow 4 in each because these are a big onion, and if I get 4 big bulb onions in the bucket or in the bag, they'll be full. They'll be full. Then ideally what I'm hoping to do at the end of the growing season is take these 4 onions at once and these 4 onions at once. We can do a comparison. We can see if the bucket is better than the bag or the bag is better than the bucket. Right, let's have a look at those Red Baron. This is Red Baron, grown from sets. I've put 5 in each, 5 in the bucket and 5 in the bag. And the reason I've done that is that these onions are a lot smaller than Walla Walla. And so I think these bags and buckets will easily take 5 onions. So I put 5 sets in each. They look to be a lot further on than Walla Walla. You've probably noticed my numbering system seems to be alter pot. That's because this bucket was growing a potato earlier this year, and that potato didn't make it. I took the potato out and it was rotten. So for some reason that potato didn't make it. So I've reused the bucket, and the same for the bag. In fact, the ticket on this bag says Jazzy, and Jazzy certainly isn't an onion, it's a potato. And that bag had a potato growing in it, and that potato didn't make it either. Fortunately, we've got lots of these buckets and bags, so I've got lots of potatoes that are still growing and growing on strong. But the ones in these containers didn't make it. So we lose some potatoes, we recycle the bucket, we recycle the bag, and we're now growing these onions. And yet, at the end of the season, I'm hoping to take 5 onions from this bucket, 5 onions from this bag, and we'll do a comparison. We'll see if one's better than the other, and we'll take a look at the root systems and see if this bag has actually air pruned the root systems on these onions. Should we be able to see a difference? I don't know. I've never air pruned anything seriously before. I've never had these fibre bags before. We're taking the word of other growers that air pruning works and it's beneficial. I don't know it is. Maybe we'll find out at the end of this growing season, maybe we won't. Who knows? Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'd like to get all these onions across the finish line, but because of that frosty start at the beginning of the year, I'm not that confident. But hey, we push on, don't we? We push on. Okay, stay safe, get in your garden as often as you can, grow some vegetables. This is Homegrown Veg, signing out.